Hey, Zaka family! Zaka is launching an exclusive membership platform to provide you with career development workshops, coaching, community, and so much more. Go to ZakaConnect.com and sign up to receive information on how to access early registration and perks. Hello, everybody. This is Paul Herman, the Prince of Motivation and host of Zaka Presents My Journey. We're creating this vulnerable and positive platform where you can get inspired and motivated from different leaders from our community. Today, our guest is Aaron Padin, who is an award-winning design director and former head of art and design at J. Walter Thompson. Aaron, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
The pleasure's all ours. Now, I'm excited to hear about all your design work, and I know our listeners are definitely going to be very intrigued and happy to hear about all the stuff that you're doing. But as a New Yorker, I got to know where you're from because I know in the bio it says it already for me. So tell us a little bit more about your cultural background and where you're from.
Absolutely. So I was born in Brooklyn, and that's a little fun fact, Brookdale Hospital.
Okay, let's get it. BK.
Yeah, and I'm the youngest of four boys. So, my brothers, they lived in Brooklyn for a while, and then my parents moved us out to the suburbs because, for a better life, right? So my parents come from Puerto Rico. They were born and raised there and met up in New York. And then, so I'm first generation and, living in the suburbs in the 70s and 80s and 90s, little different for people with an ethnic background. So it wasn't always cut and dry, as you say, but you learn from that and you build from that and you use that as your strength. So that's a little bit about where I started,
And you currently you're still in New York.
I'm in New York. I'm in a town called Long Beach. I lived in the city for over 25 years, bounced around from Brooklyn and Manhattan, and then came out back to Long Island. Yeah.
So I always ask any New Yorker that's bounced around the boroughs, which one's the best?
You can't tell me. You can't ask me that. You can't ask me that. No way. Let me. So I am a big fan of all things creative. So, I've been to every borough, every section, good, bad, ugly, indifferent. I'm talking late 80s, traipsing around Bed-Stuy, up into the South Bronx, all that stuff. And the truth of the matter, what I love about New York as a whole is that they're little ecosystems. Everywhere you go, you get out of the subway and it's a different place. It's completely different. So it really depends on what you're looking for the city to give you at that time. So, I love Manhattan because, when you're growing up on Long Island, you think of the city as Manhattan. You don't think about Brooklyn, Queens, or Staten Island or the Bronx because Brooklyn and Queens is attached to Long Island. So it's kind of the same. Right. But you have to go over a bridge into a tunnel right into Manhattan. And, for me, I love the buildings. I love I lived in Fort Greene for a while and Fort Greene was really nice. And I loved it there, too. But for me, and being a Long Islander, what happened is if I go further out, like to Coney Island or something like that.
Oh, that's it. That's deep.
Yeah, I might as well go out to Long Island at that point. So,
True. Now,
yeah.
With you moving around, I know that's in that childhood era where you're bouncing from borough to borough. I like what you said. New York is very creative, right? It's a creative spot or a place. How did your childhood shape your professional trajectory today? You mentioned something about leaving, for example, when you left out of the train station, you could be in one area and you go back on the train, you're in another. So did that kind of help in that creative aspect?
Oh, yeah. My childhood was interesting, because, we didn't have a ton of stuff, we were okay, but we didn't have a ton of stuff. So creativity was kind of like our thing. My mother painted, she always made stuff and she was crafty. My dad did stuff. And that's kind of how we would focus our energies, into making stuff or looking at things different. And that's what coming out of the subway was always like for me. When you see something different. I remember the first time I saw a painted train, I was like,
oh yeah, that was the era.
Yeah. And I'm like, how does this happen? Who's doing this? Overnight, secret society. You go, you look at this and you go, this is amazing. That the energy that people are putting into it without getting paid to do it, to be able to express themselves.
Now that I think about it, you are right.
Yeah.
That was a lot of work. That's a lot of spray cans too. They spent a lot of money to make it happen.
Or sometimes they didn't spend the money, but you know,
I'm with you.
but the point is there's so much energy, in the city, and I don't care what anybody says. The city's not dead. City's never going to die. It just changes. It evolves. Throughout the Giuliani era, it got way too cleaned up, but it worked and brought a lot of money into it. But then everyone's like, it's bad now, and you go in the city, and I'm like, I remember going into the city, you see 3-card Monte on the corners, the Shell game, or the West Side wasn't even the West Side, where the Apple store is,
Yeah.
That was not a nice area.
Yeah, no. There was it's been a change in it. So I can only imagine you being in different boroughs and seeing these things, right? It kind of helps you understand how the evolution of creativity comes in.
Yeah.
Seeing the buildings go up, the high rises, to seeing the graffiti walls that you probably admired at one point in time all kind of vanish. And now some of the places actually they actually have some big murals that are well known out there. So that creative aspect, I could imagine it was just always there for you, in front of you.
I mean, I remember listening to, like watching hip hop, and graffiti was part of hip hop, grow out of nothing but necessity for expression. And that's what being creative means to me, is to be able to express yourself and funnel that in a way. And it's hard. It's not easy, and it's hard to find your path, but I always say, and I say this, and I'll say it till the day I die, is that I don't care if I grew up right next to you. Your background is what defines what you like and don't like, and it makes you different. So, and that difference is what your superpower is. You're able to. I could have grown up right next to you, Paul, and we could have gone to the same schools, but because I come from a different place and you come from a different place, we would have different approaches to the same problems, and that's great. And we should do that. We should do that. We should embrace each other's difference instead of fighting against it. It's terrible.
Mm-hmm. Now, in this time frame of you in your childhood, of seeing all these creative avenues for yourself, right? You said your mother was a painter as well too.
Yeah.
Was there something that was like the moment in time where you were like, this is one of the most memorable moments in my life, where it kind of helped like start the whole moving into making this creative aspect of you become more of a career focus?
I've been asked that question, and I always have the same answer, and I can't come up with anything better than this. It's all I wanted to do. I didn't want to do anything else. I couldn't. I'm sure I could have been a lawyer. I'm sure if I wanted to do that, I could have been a lawyer. I could have been something, but it didn't excite me. It didn't. I was painting jackets in high school for $50 a jacket.
Just go. You was doing it. You was a little entrepreneur.
Yeah, it was always to make stuff, and that's what I hold value. Where I see the things I make, and I never think they're good, and other people do, which is great, but I have to keep pushing myself.
Now, at an early age, doing these jackets, I want to ask you now: do you still have one of those jackets?
I don't, but I have pictures.
Okay. Well, I know you can recreate it at any point in time. I was gonna ask any designer now, because I know there's some pieces that you kind of kept over the many years. But
I've kept a lot, but I tend not to look backwards. I always look forward. It's my journey, right? But I don't value anything. I was once asked, "What's the best thing I made?" And I'm like, I don't know. I haven't made it yet. Because I haven't. Everything I make is for today or tomorrow or whatever, but like it's you have to keep pushing, and I'm going to keep doing it until I can't, physically.
Now, being a creative, right? A lot of times people look at you or label you with words, right? And one of the words is different, unique, right? Special, right? So in your time of growing up, was there a moment in time where you felt unique, where you felt like you didn't fit in?
I wouldn't even say that I felt it. I was told it.
Oh, wow.
It's like not in a good way.
I could only imagine. Yeah, at this point in time, yeah.
So like it was very much it was a little difficult because being Puerto Rican and identifying as that, but I don't speak Spanish. So a lot of people like, well, your parents speak Spanish and stuff like that, but they came during the 50s and they didn't have a good go of it. So it was hard, but they were trying to, during that period, it was very much like blend in, fit in kind of thing, right? So, but the culture wasn't hidden. It wasn't, our language wasn't hidden. It was a choice that I was given. Do I learn it or I don't? And, it was easier for me not to. And, it's something that if I have any regret is probably that. But you wind up not fitting in a box, right? So those labels are always difficult when someone's like, you are this. And that's an American thing, to be fair. And it is an immigrant story for anyone, whether you're Italian, German, or anything. You're the first people to come, or that wave that come in, you're always going to be put in a box. And because I didn't fit in anywhere, I sort of just created my own box, and and I tried to fit in. I try to, do whatever I could to blend, but it wasn't genuine and it wasn't who I am. So, and it took a very long time to like make that a reality, to get past all of that. And that comes with age, but it also comes with identifying yourself and your truth. And I advise anybody to seek out their truth, but to embrace their difference, because that's what makes them special. The world the way it is today does not, you don't need to blend in, you don't need to hide, and you don't need to overhype how different you are either, because what's that going to do? That just flips you on the other side of the spectrum. For me, I'm proud of my roots. I'm proud of everything my family has accomplished, and there's more that I can do and more I will do.
And embracing how special and diverse you are and unique you are is always, a lot of the guests had talked about that in previous conversation. Some of them actually said that was some of the reason why they actually got their promotions, and climbed up the ladder, because, some of them, because they were bilingual, trilingual, they speak different languages,
100%.
which in turn made them more valuable at the company, or just in regards to how they dealt with certain situations, in regards to like being from their culture. It was like that a lot of the Caribbean individuals, that they said that they had like a very warm embrace, with that kind of stuff. So it's like, so I totally get you on that. Like, now, something that I want to ask you is like, how did your career like get started? Like, when did you realize that you were going to make an impact with the work that you're doing?
I didn't.
Okay.
I didn't. Basically, what happened, and my journey is not straightforward. I wanted to be a creative. I had, I wanted to. I just did not fit the mold, right? So I couldn't get in anywhere. So I didn't stop wanting to be creative. There's a couple of layers to this answer, and one of them is like, and it's a known story because it actually makes me a stronger creative. So what happened was I couldn't get a job in anything creative. I was doing side gigs. I was doing things for a moving company, local car dealers, the police, things like this. And I was,
but not design work.
Design work, but I was drawing.
Doing design work for those individuals. Okay, got you.
But you have to know, I've always worked since I've been 14. I used to mow lawns. I used to sweep clippings from in a dress shop. Like because work is something was instilled in us. So you have to work.
Yeah.
You have to work.
That mindset our parents and our grandparents, put in us.
Yeah.
Like, look, you wake up, you work.
That's right. You have to work, and there was no other thing to do. You have to do something, and you have to add value, right? So I wanted to be this designer guy, and I was doing it on the side, but life has other things, you need to pay your rent. So design work wasn't really paying. So I got into printing and pre-press, which nobody knows what that is, but some might, but it's not a pretty job. But I didn't work on presses and stuff like that. And I learned every aspect of that business. I worked in there 10 years, but I never lost sight of what I wanted to do. And then at some point, an agency became our client. And because I was young and I was creative, I became the lead
Okay.
for that. But I was still doing this production work. So I came through production. And then from there, they were like, hey, do you want to come to the agency and work here? And I said, sure, yeah, for sure. And I didn't get into advertising and design full time till I was 30. So I spent, my 20s working in another industry.
Trying to find that opening.
Well, I wasn't even looking for. I was looking for it, but at the same time, I'm like, maybe I make this something. Like, what is the opportunity that's in front of me that I can convert into something I want it to be, and I can visualize what that can be. So pushed to open new doors, and it didn't happen. But so then I, as you said earlier, sometimes you have to leave something to get something else, and that's always sad. But I did that, and I did that. And, your point of like, what brings creativity to life for me is that warmness and that I felt growing up. And the fact that, we grew up in a household full of jokes and laughter and love and warmth. And you go to Puerto Rico and you see color and all this other stuff.
Yeah, it's vibrant.
Yeah, and then you go, I go visit my grandmother in the Bronx, and it's hard. It's a harder environment, and but storytelling was always part. Everybody telling a story about the family or something. My grandmother telling me a story about growing up on the island and what she had to do, and and there's pride in all that. So you really just lean into it, and storytelling is number one in what I do. So, it's when you're creating something, you're crafting for, whether it's an abstract or it's a very, beautiful piece, because some, design has many forms.
Yeah, true.
So everyone's like, well, when you think design, what do you think? I design experiences too, from when you walk into a door. Even this podcast is a designed experience to communicate and get shared feelings and thoughts out. So everything is considered, because as a young person, I had to be able to read everything that was happening around me, because I didn't sit in one box.
Mm. You mentioned about your grandmother talking about like her growing up in the islands, and just thinking that. I just want to kind of think about a question I was going to ask you. Like, obviously, your roots being Puerto Rican, right?
Yeah.
Did you ever feel at some point in time that your Puerto Rican roots kind of like, in your cultural background, influence you in the design process?
100% it does.
Okay,
100%.
talk to me.
Yeah, 100%. It is. I know what my limitations are as a designer. I tend to want to make things colorful. I tend to want to do things. So
Okay.
I pull back. Sometimes I want them to be loud, but each design
Doesn't have to be like that.
and shouldn't be like that, because design is meant to be flexible. So I built a process, I built a process around how to get through certain traps that I have for myself, right? So what that means is, like, I know where my tendency is to go, so I'm aware. You have to be self-aware. So I pull away from there if that's not what the brief needs. Then you're an artist, right? So that's the difference. If you're an artist, you make a thing. And people love that thing, whether it's a type of music or a type of a painting style or some sort of abstract thing that people are gravitating towards. But that's what you get known for. And you can become famous with that. As a designer, for what I do, I have to be able to change hats, mindsets based on what the problem is that I'm trying to solve.
Could you give an example of like of when or where your heritage influence a project?
It's just omnipresent. It's always there, so I also do work with agencies in Puerto Rico. So I mean, if
Oh,
that,
look at that. Okay, going back home. I like that.
I've been doing that for the last 8 years, on and off. I work with an agency down there, and I help. I'm working on a big client right now with them, and you'll see a lot of the influence coming through there. You know,
Mm,
yeah, because I love it. I love going down there.
okay, it's good. I like when the guests always have a connection back home.
Always,
I,
yeah,
I I love it. Some individuals, they make it to a certain point in time in their career. They say, you know what, I made it here. I'm fine where I am. But I
yeah,
love a guest that comes onto the show and says, I went back home. I developed something back there. I'm mentoring students from back home for my country.
yeah,
It's good to hear that type of like connection because
yeah.
you never forget where you came from.
No,
And
I
that's important because it's a part of it's a part of your journey. And like you said, it's a part of the design process where you had to kind of tame yourself from putting that your culture into every single
yeah.
piece and making every piece be so viral. I can only imagine what the first couple pieces looked like.
Oh
It was
yeah,
just like just color everywhere. Like, look, we're gonna wear this.
yeah,
And then you're like, you know what, let me tame it down a little bit, right?
yeah.
Because like you said, it's gotta be flexible. So I
There's a
could
process to the whole thing where and again, self-awareness is huge, and I think where people fall down, and I think earlier I said that, the identification of your heritage is a very American thing where, the first thing you're asked is like, where you're from. If they can't figure you out and put you in a box, it's like, where you from? Like, well, I'm from Long Island. No, no, where you from? Like, well, I'm from here. Like, I was born in Brooklyn. Does that help? It's like, no, where's your family from?
true,
Now, if you travel abroad, they just say you're American. Doesn't matter where you came from. You're American.
true.
Because that's the global mindset. It's like you're an American, you're a German, you're this. It doesn't matter. It's a like I said, it's a bit of an American thing where everyone's like, I need to put somebody in a lane. It's usually where are you from and what do you do?
Yeah,
Those are the first two things that get asked. Uh,
yeah.
I don't think that'll ever change, but that's just what it is. And then getting back to the work, you know, uh, I bring passion to what I do, and that is definitely directed back to my heritage. I
Mm.
bring nothing but passion. I never have to do anything. I put every ounce of energy I have into making what I make because
Ah,
I
it's
want it to
amazing.
be good. I want it to be good. I do not want to make stuff for money. I mean, I make stuff for money, but I don't want to make it solely for the reason of making it for money. And I'm not, and I don't do that. Like I take projects that I really feel good about, that I know I can help, you
That's
know,
nice. That's nice of you right there.
I know I can, I mentor students for a college in New Jersey. I have no connection to New Jersey, but, the students out there are multicultural. And, it's a school that is not known for design. They have a design program and I help them,
Mm,
and I
mm,
help them with
mm.
their projects, and we have weekly calls, and, they can call me 7 days a week. They never do. I don't know why, but they never do. And but I'm always trying to help people because I did not have that help.
Mhm,
Everything
mhm.
I had to do, I had to push the door open. I had to find an avenue. Like I would take so many projects that nobody wanted to do, and I
In
would,
order.
in order to show I could do things. And the best part of that was the fact that I took them and nobody cared about them, and I was able to blow them out and make them something special. And then everyone goes, "Well, how did you do that? I didn't know you could do that." And I'm like, "I didn't know I couldn't."
True,
You
true,
know?
true. Now, just shifting over to your, I know your talk.
Yeah.
So your talk emphasizing the relationship between tech and behavior. How do you believe um, this understanding can empower immigrants and diverse communities in the tech-driven creative industry?
Yeah, the talk was specifically about the fear of tech. That's what
Uh,
it was about, the fear of tech, how everyone looks at, oh, everyone's mining my data. everyone is keeping track of all my stuff. And I'm like, why are you fearing that? That behavior that they're recording is coming from you. And you're the one developing it by doing it. Now, if you want to change that behavior or the algorithm as a unit, case in point, and I did this talk in China, I said, if for one day everyone changes what they do, their online searches or anything else, it will upset the algorithm. You'll be starting to get fed new things.
True.
So it really doesn't work for the question per se, but it does. And I'm just going to riff here. It does play into like a hive mentality where people work together, then they can create change for themselves. And you see this every day in politics and things like that, good and bad. But tech itself, to get into the tech, that's a different, like, I'm not an expert in tech and make that connection. That was specifically about not fearing what is happening, because you can change it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, well said. In 2015 now, I know I'm going back. I'm looking at that bio, looking at a lot of these things. 2015, you were acknowledged in Adweeks, right? 2015 Creative 100 list as the top 30, right?
Yeah.
Art director, creative director, who's smart, funny, innovative work. Talk to us about that.
It was like one of those things where you get it and you don't know what it does, right? So I got it, and I remember calling a friend and I'm like, I got this thing. He's like, that's awesome. That's great. Congratulations. I'm like, I just don't know what it means, like I was very proud of the accomplishment, but I look back and it's great to have it. And I would never say I didn't deserve it, because I did. But at the end of the day, it didn't define me, because that was in 2015. I was proud about it. And, and I had people who are like, oh, great. So what? What's that going to do? It's advertising. Nobody cares. I'm like, but it's an accomplishment for me.
Yeah.
And I, coming from where I come from and working as hard as I did and pushing as hard as I did, I work 7 days a week, and I still do. And I work.
But you do it because you love it. It's different now, probably.
Well, I'm going to tell you a story about that. Because I used to, in my first agency, one of the things I used to do is I'd want to get out of there, because I was doing my own artwork. I was like developing my own style. I was doing all this stuff. So every time I had to work late, it took away from what I wanted to do. And then I was there 5 years, and I would go home. I get there home at 10 o'clock, work till 3 a.m. on my stuff,
I see.
And I was like, okay, and then sleep for like 4 hours, 5 hours, go back to work. Then I left that agency only because it closed, and went to another agency, and they had a different perspective on how they wanted to approach the work. And my mind went like, okay, they want to make work that's like artwork. So why couldn't I make work that is like artwork for me? Like, why can't I bring that passion into my everyday work? That it's like, it's my personal, so I get very personally attached to these things because I approach it like it's my own artwork. And then, I didn't look back. I just pushed, and, jumped on any grenade. Anything that came my way, I said yes. I was like, I'll take it, working 2-3 projects.
That's that approach.
Yeah.
Sometimes you gotta, my father would say, another man's trash could be someone's treasure.
That's right. And I didn't care what it was, as long as I could express myself. And those are some of the best pieces I made when nobody was looking,
Okay.
Because
Respect.
Because people didn't care, that's just the meek shall inherit the earth, as the saying goes. I think that means something bigger, but like when people have very low expectation of somebody, that person is left with putting a low expectation on themselves or rising above and
True.
pushing forward, and not because they're trying to prove something to the rest of the world. They're trying to prove something to themselves. And I think that's what I was trying to do, prove something to myself that I could do it, because I believed I could, but in order to make that belief a reality, you actually have to do it.
Yeah, you actually put
Otherwise,
your
yeah,
you got to put your you got to get your hands dirty a little bit.
that's right. So,
Yeah.
and that's what I did, and I still do that.
So in your career, like talk to me about like an obstacle that you had to overcome then that you're like proud of. Because now we talking about getting your hands dirty. Like so, like
Yeah.
what is like
I,
a time?
I'll tell you what I was proud of. I built my design team at J. Walter from the ground up. It just started with me, and then I built it one by one, multicultural, probably 90% women. I do a thing called like blind recruiting, where it's a known term. I don't look at who you are or what school you went to. I only look at your portfolio. And if you're not putting your personal work in there, I probably won't look that hard, because I have to see what you can do. And then after a conversation to see how driven you are. But everyone that was on the design team, and they were straight out of school, you don't know if they're going to be good or bad, but like, some may have been in the business for a year. But they're all very, very successful right now, very successful, and they're award winning. They've made great, notable work. And I'm proud of that. I am proud of, raising them and helping them, or even if they hated me, that they chose a path that was theirs because of the relationship they had with me. So
Well, they had a good leader. They had someone who already, worked from scratch to get to where they were. And then now you have an opportunity to kind of help give them an opportunity, but also help them develop their talents even more.
It's all about approach, right? So when someone, it's like this for anything in life. If someone comes to you with a problem, it could be an emotional problem. When I say emotional, like there's no real problem. They're just handling it in an emotional way. You could look at it objectively. You could look at it in many different ways. But at the end of it, what you have to do is be able to find a solution. And you have to take your emotion away and put whatever your personal opinion is, look at the thing, break it all down and it's my design process too. I'm going through it right now. I'm working on a project where they gave me a whole bunch of stuff, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm looking at. So I have to break everything out into components and pieces, and then I can put it back together again, with a new design.
Now, since we were talking about the people that you were working with, like the people you hired into the company, you are known as a leader, but also as a mentor. And you mentioned it a little briefly when you talked about the whole thing about Jersey, but you were named the inaugural Mentor of the Year, right? And just working with a wide range of various different students, multicultural, especially from the immigrant background. But talk to us a little bit more about like how do you mentor those individuals from the immigrant background, and given some of those principles and practices, help guide them through your mentorship.
100%. And like I said, my team was very diverse. I had people from all over. And it's the same thing. The way the MAPE award happened was I was working with a specific individual, and she, definitely we were similar. She was from a Hispanic background, but I said to her, I said, look, you're here, and I will tell you everything I know, anything you want to know, but you have to put the work in, right? And a lot of immigrant stories come with hard work. Somebody in the lineage did the hard work for the next generation. And she worked very, very hard, harder than anyone I probably ever met. I mean, they all worked very hard, but she put the effort in, and she's huge now. But the approach is much the same that I do. Whatever you want to know, I'll tell you. But you have to ask the right questions. So you have to dig to find what those questions are. I can't give those to you, because then you're just going to repeat back what I'm telling you. Like if you're not trying to find, you're not asking the questions of yourself, then how are you going to know what you should be asking me? as a creative, the first thing I always did was like, where do I want to be? Like I didn't know, I knew where I wanted to end up. I didn't know how I was going to get there.
Mm.
And by working very hard and diligent and putting myself in that direction and not, they say luck, oh, you were lucky. It's like, there's no luck. Luck is all about never saying no. It's just like,
Great philosophy on that.
yeah, never saying no. I don't care what it is. I'll do it. Like, let's go figure it out. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. But I'll learn, and I'll grow, and I'll keep pushing in that direction till I get to a place that I know what the hell I'm talking about. So many people, especially in the creative field, just talk. They're really good at it. I mean, like, brilliant, amazing to watch, and I love to see a good orator. Like, I'm impressed by it, but that's not me. I'm never going to be that. I can present my work and I can talk about all that really well, but I'm not going to talk about myself per se and be like, oh, do this, do that, because I don't feel comfortable doing that. I feel comfortable in making the work, and making things. And for a long time, I got to a level that I wasn't really making the work and I was ideating more.
Okay.
And ideating and doing the more management and things like that. And it was comfortable, but it becomes like a handcuff because now you're relying on your team and which you're supposed to do. And then what do you do then? You change jobs, you leave jobs, you get let go, and then what do? You have to find another director job where you have a team, motivate them and stuff like that. But I'm a maker, and I was like, I went to make after I switched and went on my own. I was like, I don't know how, and it took me like, but I knew what I wanted to make. I had it. It was smart. It was all good, but I just didn't have the hands. But it took about 6 months, about 5 years ago, and go through that process. It was very painful. You get a lot of self doubt, but if you have
that's that self doubt during those times is when you're like questioning. You're listening. You're like something's tapping you on your shoulder. It's in your ear. Like, look, I think we should have stayed over here. Think we should have made that move. But like you said, if you believe in yourself, which you kind of highlighted, especially as a creative, you are unique, you are special. So it's important that you truly do believe in yourself in that process because you are the work, right? It's coming from you. It's not like you type it into the computer screen and a number pops up, right? It's actually flowing through you.
Right.
And I love the fact that with the whole mentorship and stuff like that, because I'm very big on mentorship, and a lot of the guests have talked about that, about either them finding a mentor to help them out in their career path as they got older, but helping back future generations. But like, why is it so important for you to give back?
I can say that in like one word: because it's necessary. That's it. It's necessary.
That was it. That is what people should be saying.
Yeah,
it's necessary.
You have to do it. There's no question of doing it. You do it. I do it now. I'm not even attached to an agency. I'm my own entity. And I reached out to the school and I was like, you have anybody who needs an internship or change? The interns they give me, they don't do any of my work because they can't. So I'm like, I give them, not that because they're incapable, they don't understand it. So,
true.
So what I do is I give them tasks to grow into, and then whatever project they're working on, I'm like, let's use that as the project. So a project for school, like right now I'm working with somebody, and and I said to her, I said, what's your next assignment? She's like, because she's in her final year. She's like, I have to do these billboards and other things. And I said, okay. I said, that's what you're going to be working on. Let me see what they asked you to do. And the first thing I said to her was, what's your approach on this? What are you thinking to do? And she was like, I'm not sure. I'm like, do your research. You have to research. You have to research. You have to research. Without understanding, you cannot make anything for anybody. Then you're being too objective, and then you're starting to project boxes for people. Like, you need to understand the category, and if you don't agree with the topic, then don't do it. But as a designer for anybody, it's like people have styles, they have things, but you have to be able to just be able to read it and go, I can take whatever I have as a person and give them an answer they need, maybe slightly different than they expect. But that's the kind of, we always start with thinking first, and that's the big thing. The why. Why are we doing it? What are we for? I mean, yes, the obvious answer is like, well, that's the
The
job.
financing, the money.
Yeah.
I was told to do it.
Yeah.
But your
That's
why has to be very important. And
yeah.
giving back
Yeah. And
it should be a part of that.
I love doing that. Like, it gets me, if someone can, like it's like you get as much as you give. You really do.
Yeah.
You
You get
know,
what you receive what you get.
yeah. So you really get that. I mean, people don't understand. They're like, I don't have the time. Make the time. Make the time to give back. What's so hard to like give a piece of your thinking? They don't. They, what people have to understand is they can't. You're not trying to replicate yourself with someone else. You're trying to give them the tools they need to be able to extract from you what they can use.
True. True.
You know,
Yeah, yeah. I like how you're saying that. That's very important. You're helping.
you're
And
helping them. Yeah.
and we never know. Sometimes those people that, which some of the guests have talked about, the people they actually helped became actually another. They left the company, went somewhere else, and they were the reason why they got hired at that company because of the work and the relationship. And that's where it gets back to networking. And when people know you're a genuine person and you as a creative, you know what I'm saying, and you have that energy inside of you. So, and that's why it brings me to that next question where it was, I think it was 2010, you had a very big role with the release of
The burner campaign.
yeah.
Mhm.
Like, how did you believe the power of design and branding can be harnessed?
That's the power of all creativity coming together in one. I mean, it's so old now, um, but it was one of those things where I'm going to break it down to you in a basic form. Do you know what that idea is?
Nah, break that down. Break it down. I'm here for you.
Yeah, it's the pen is mightier than the sword. That's the core idea. You take a pen, you sign your name, you become connected to it, to the book. The book gets sent to the UN, and it pushes the government. That's what it is. The pen, you by releasing the pen, you're pulling a jail bar off the cells. That's what it was, and you sign your name to say, I want this person released. I want these people released. So that's pure creative endeavor that did quite well for us, and I would say it's a beautiful piece.
Mm.
Big team attached to it, and I love simple ideas that resonate. Simple ideas like that are great.
Mm.
Yeah.
Now, throughout your career, I definitely want to drop some gems right now. Right, you work with some big companies.
Uh-huh.
Right, and I want to kind of just like highlight a few of them so the listeners know you're the real deal. PUMA, Starbucks,
Oh yeah.
Energizer, right? These are brands in which we see on commercials, such as like in Super Bowls and
Yeah.
Olympic days and stuff like that, and also in our local stores, right? It's beautiful to see the things that you've worked on or worked with, right? That you have that you could actually see in your everyday life, right?
Oh,
How do you ensure that your work maintains a cultural sensitivity and also like that inclusive,
yeah. So
especially when you're targeting like that demographic,
yeah,
a diverse audience.
you go deep into a truth, that everyone can connect to. I think that's the core thinking behind that. Like there's a bunch of different types of way to approach a problem, through creative endeavors, right? So you can go, I need to sell something. So I have to tell you how much it costs. Right. So I do a lot of brand work. So the Puma stuff was brand work. I have to push an emotion or a stance where this company, you can connect to it, and Puma has such a great story as a brand. Um, I'm sure people know it, or if they don't, PUMA was created by Rudolf Dassler. He started PUMA, who is the brother of Adi Dassler of Adidas, or Adidas in America.
That's right.
So, and PUMA was always the rogue or the outsider, and they were the rebel. So that's why their athletes, like Nike has their athletes, PUMA has their athletes, Adidas has their athletes, and they're all different in personality. So it's embracing the personality of the brand and being able to express it, whether it's a Starbucks or anything else. So you go beyond like cultural norms to human truths. And I think that everyone could connect with. Like, look, we're all human beings. We're all connected by the same thing. Whether you're from one place or another, it doesn't matter. There are truths that we all share, and I think that's what people forget. So you try to get into those and drag those out so that everyone goes, I understand what that is. They're always, but then there's, you go, what about languages? Well, this stuff gets converted into languages. Do you know how much effort goes into finding a tagline that will work globally?
That I could imagine, because the work of being creative is done, right? Then finding the branding to go with it, so
Yeah.
that it reaches the world and not like a target demographic. That's got to be nerve-wracking. The amount of options.
But it's all done through strategy, and there's so much effort that goes into that. Like the creative is one aspect of the business. There's also strategists and trends and all this other stuff. Like you can come up with a tagline and then put that tagline in another language and it means something completely different. So you got to get rid of it. You have to change it. So I'll give you an example of how long ago this thinking has been done. Like everyone knows Rolex, right?
Yep.
And I'm not talking about the delicatessen that was in Fort Greene called Rolex. There was one. And they got a cease and desist. They did. And they had the crown and everything. It was amazing.
Oh, no.
Yeah. But so Rolex doesn't mean anything. It's not a word. It was invented so that they could put meaning into it because they want it to be global. So it doesn't mean anything. It's just a made up word. And they were like, I like this word. And now we can make it mean, because it's the same in any language. It doesn't have to get converted. So that's the kind of level that we bring, the kind of thinking we bring to stuff. That's why you can't sit in a box. You have to be globally minded. I said it before. You have to be able to look past, embrace what you have and what you bring. There was a time I was in India, and I had something I needed done in my hotel room. It was late at night, and it was like 11 o'clock, and they sent someone up, and they're working in it, and I'm talking to them, and I was like, oh, I was talking to them, and I was asking questions about them and the hotel, because the hotel was attacked by terrorists. And people died and everything, and it was rebuilt and all this stuff. So I was asking about that, and they, kind of hard to talk about. But then they brought someone else out to talk, and then they brought two more people up. So there were four people in my room that I did not know, and we stayed up till 4 a.m. just talking about life, India, the hotel, their journey, all of that. And I remember talking to a gentleman from Spain the next day, and I was like, oh man, I learned so much, about the culture and everything and just what they went through. And he said to me, he's like, I don't know anybody who would have done that.
I mean, 4 individuals, you're in a distant country.
Yeah.
You don't really speak the language.
No.
Right?
No.
So
I'm not speaking at all.
You might know a few words here and there. That's a little risky.
Yeah, but I did it, and the point was, because you can tell if you have empathy for human beings, you can feel who's going to be genuine, who's not, right? And like I don't vibe on people who are selling stuff to me or trying to be like they know the answer, because no one knows the answer. The answer is your answer to answer. You're gonna figure it out at some point, or you're not. So. But it all ties into giving back. It all ties
yeah.
it's being empathetic to somebody's plight. Now, people lie to themselves and they're always like, "Oh no, I can do it. I don't need your help." I'm like, I don't want anything in return. This isn't quid pro quo here. I'm just offering my assistance because that's who I am.
Mm. You're a very humble young man.
Not that young.
Being creative always keeps you young. I'm gonna let you know that.
Thank you,
right?
thank you.
I've seen a lot of creatives that we've had on the show, or even had the opportunity of having a conversation with. They're very young because they're so vibrant, right?
Yeah.
That creative aspect keeps them, that keeps that going. But like being so humble with all these accomplishments, like what do you think are like the three most important qualities that help you be where you are today?
Empathy, number one.
Yes, and so you mentioned that. Yep.
Yeah, 100%. You have to be empathetic to things. Drive.
Okay, something from your heritage, having that drive, keep your head down, keep working hard. Okay.
And another thing from my heritage is pride.
Good.
You have to have pride in the things you make. My portfolio is so important to me. The work's old, I have new work, but I don't put everything in there. I make more than I put in there. I only put the things I like, because strangely, and sounds crazy, but when I'm old and I can't move my hands anymore, I want to be able to look at my portfolio and go,
yes.
Okay.
And as a creative, it's important to do that.
Yeah. And, more so than, you always expect people to like recognize you for helping them. They don't. And that's okay, because at some point they have to go on their own. And like children, you raise a child and they're off and they're doing their own thing. They forget their parents. Some do, some don't. But I mean, it's not a definitive thing. But I will always help people regardless of who they are, where they're from. I don't fucking care. Sorry for the cursing.
No, you're good. You're good.
Yeah, but I don't care. That's just who I am. You want to call me up? You want to ask me a question? You want to show me what you're working on? Call me up. Hit me up. I don't care. I had a gentleman reach out to me the other day and he's like, "Hey, can you look at something for me?" And I'm like, "Sure." And we riffed half hour, boom, and it made it better. That is important. Working together to make it better, whatever it is, And
I like how you rock.
That's it. I mean, that's important. It's like, to bring it back around full circle a little bit. It's like your superpower is your background. It is, for a long time, it was my cross to bear, when I was young. It was hard, but I got through it and, many different ways, but I got through it to a place where like, I'm okay to be on this podcast and talking about it,
Yeah. Sharing your story is important.
And for me, I love my upbringing. We didn't have much, but like, that's okay, because it's again, like if I can sculpt something and I can show it to you and you go, can I have that? And I'd be like, yeah, you like it that much, you can have it. Like, that's more important to me than going, I was the head of art design at J. Walter Thompson. That was like something I strove to do because I had to prove it to myself.
Yeah. Different things, different drives. I can see right here. But you truly are creative. Like you were deep in it. Like you like to see other people create on top of you creating as well. Yeah. It's not like I'm a creative, I create for myself.
Watch me. You're an artist, but then you're an artist if you do that. That's fine. But I work with a young man now, and we do a lot of piggybacking, which is great because he has a completely different style. And I'm like, you do you, and then let's work together, and I'll do me, and then we put it together and we have something unique. That's how I built my team when I was at the agency. I had people from all different walks of life, and they all had a different thing. And if they wanted to cross learn, they could. If they wanted to stay in their lane, they could. But the output was gorgeous.
When you put good people together, good energy, that stuff flows. So congratulations to you on everything you've been doing, man.
Thank you.
And the work that you've done and the people you have helped inspired along the way, because like you said, giving back, it's necessary. And
It's necessary.
if we forget that that's a part of our journey, then the journey is not meant for us at that point in time, I believe. I feel
Yeah.
like your journey does have to consist of, at some point in time, you're giving back. I always say, as an artist,
Yeah.
you're not an artist until you give back.
That's right.
Right. And you've been taught that at a young age from your family members growing up. Your grandparents gave you some information, your parents gave you information, everyone provided you with that opportunity, and you just kept on going. I like the fact that you always felt that you were unique and creative, and you just kind of went with it. It was not I like how you said in this interview how there wasn't like a direct moment. It was just, you just knew. There wasn't like, I went to this event, I saw some artwork, I saw a designer, I met a designer, and I shook their hand, and all of a sudden I felt like that was it. You were like, from birth, it was just out there. So congratulations, kudos to you on all the work you've been doing. I just want to just leave it off of you saying any last words for the listeners.
Sorry, I keep hearing everything. So any last words? You know what I would say is be truthful to yourself, you know, and don't stop, you know, because what I mean by that is don't let anybody course correct what you believe. I think that's a better way of putting it, because you have to be driven enough to know you can do it, because you can. Like,
True.
so let me rephrase that so it flows a little better. It's as simple as keep the dream alive, staying focused in what you want. Don't get diverted by any noise. You know, be able to take that inner strength through the hard times and say, and look at the end result. Don't look at the now. Look at where the journey is going to take you, and keep that in your sights at all times.
Okay. Well, Aaron, I want to say thank you again for just joining us today, and it's really just sharing your light, sharing your creative mindset with us, giving us a lot of great insight on what it takes to get to this place in time in your career. Right. And I want to let the listeners know, if you want to hear more inspirational stories like Aaron, please check us out on ZakaConnect.com. Follow our social at ZakaConnect, and follow our feed, Zaka, wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Thank you.